Etz Chayyim, the tree of life, gate 16 of 50, Sha'ar ha'olam, the gate of the world. Volume 2, the 5 Partzufim and the worlds. The 4 worlds have appeared throughout the Etz Chayyim. They have been the implicit background of every teaching since Gate 1. The Partzufim operate within them. The soul descends through them. The Yichudim are enacted across them. Until now, they have been mentioned in passing, named in their acronym, ABYA, and assumed. This is the gate where they are examined directly. Atzilut, Beriyah, Yetzirah, Asiyah. Emanation, creation, formation, action. 4 levels of cosmic existence, each progressively further from the infinite and progressively closer to the physical world we inhabit. Together they form the complete ladder of descent by which the divine light reaches the stone at our feet. And together they form the complete ladder of ascent by which the soul, through prayer and mitzvah, returns toward its source. Gate 15 mapped the human soul vertically across these worlds. Gate 16 maps the worlds themselves. Where Gate 15 gave the inward anthropology, this gate gives the outward cosmology. The 2 teachings are inseparable. The soul is the cosmos folded inward, the cosmos is the soul unfolded outward, and together they constitute the complete Lurianic picture of what exists and where we stand within it. The fundamental claim of this gate is structural. The word olam, world, shares its Hebrew root with the word he'alam, meaning concealment. A world is, in the Lurianic understanding, not primarily a place but a level of concealment. In Atzilut, the divine is transparently present. In Beriyah, slightly concealed. In Yetzirah, more concealed. In Asiyah, most concealed of all. The physical universe is the world of maximum concealment, the level at which it becomes possible, for the first time in the entire cosmic chain, to be unaware of God. This possibility is not an accident. It is the reason the chain descends at all. The 4-world doctrine has a scriptural anchor. A single verse from the prophet Isaiah encodes the complete structure, and the Lurianic tradition reads it as the biblical source from which the entire cosmology unfolds. The verse is Isaiah 43, verse 7. Its words in the Hebrew are these: "All who are called by my name, and for my glory I have created, I have formed, even I have made." 4 verbs: called, created, formed, made. And each verb, the tradition teaches, names one of the 4 worlds. Kol ha-nikra vishmi v'likvodi brativ yetzartiv av asitiv. All who are called by my name and for my glory, I have created, I have formed, even I have made. For my glory, likvodi, is the world of Atzilut, the world of pure emanation, where the divine glory is simply what is, without any intervening act of creation. The name of this world comes from the Hebrew root etzel, meaning close, near, beside. Atzilut is the world closest to the infinite, the world adjacent to divinity itself, the world that has not yet stepped away from its source. I have created, brativ, is the world of Beriyah, the world of creation proper, the first act by which something genuinely other than the divine comes into existence. The Hebrew word for this act, Beriyah, carries the specific technical meaning of yesh me ayin, something from nothing. Beriyah is the world in which the absolute novelty of creation occurs for the first time. I have formed, yitzartiv, is the world of Yetzirah, the world of formation. Here, what was brought into existence in Beriyah is given specific shape, specific form, specific character. Yetzirah is yesh mi yesh, something from something. It does not create from nothing. It shapes what has already been created. The metaphor the tradition offers is clay in the hands of a potter. The clay existed, but the form did not until the potter shaped it. Even I have made, of asitiv, is the world of Asiyah, the world of action, of actualization, of completion. Here what was formed in Yetzirah becomes fully actual, fully expressed, fully manifest. The word even, is not redundant in the Hebrew. It marks emphasis. Even this lowest world, this final, densest level of creation, is contained within the divine purpose from which the whole chain began. 4 words, 4 worlds. ABYA, the acronym by which the tradition names the complete chain. Atzilut, Beriyah, Yetzirah, Asiyah. Emanation, creation, formation, action. These are the 4 registers of divine self-disclosure, the 4 steps by which what was infinite becomes finite, the 4 worlds of the tikkun, the rectified cosmos that replace the shattered world of tohu. The 4 worlds are not separate realms, they are connected links in a single chain, a single continuous descent of divine light from its source to its destination. The tradition calls this chain the Hishtalshalut, from the Hebrew shalshalet, meaning chain. And understanding the Hishtalshalut is understanding how the divine reaches from its infinite origin into the physical world. Hishtalshalut, Sharsharet Ha'olamot. Hishtalshalut, the chain of the worlds. Every world in the chain is connected to the world above it and to the world below it. The connection is specific and structurally precise. At the transition from any upper world to the world directly beneath it, a remarkable inversion occurs, the lowest point of the upper world. Its malkut, its kingdom, its terminal endpoint becomes the highest point of the lower world, its cater, its crown, its starting source. The last rung of one ladder is the first rung of the next. This means that the entire lower world is built from the residue of the upper. The malkut of Atzilut becomes the keter of Beriyah. The malkut of Beriyah becomes the keter of Yetzirah. The malkut of Yetzirah becomes the keter of Asiyah. And the malkut of Asiyah, the lowest possible point of the spiritual world, becomes the keter of the physical universe we inhabit. The chain is continuous. What falls out of one world as its most contracted terminus becomes what rises into the next world as its most exalted source. There is a consequence to this structure that the tradition states plainly. The highest aspiration of any world reaches no further than the lowest emanation of the world above it. A soul rooted in Asiyah can aspire at most to the malkut of Yetzirah. A soul that reaches that aspiration has, in a real sense, passed beyond its own world. It stands at the foot of the next ladder, with all the rungs above still to climb. This is the structural reason that spiritual ascent is both possible and difficult. The chain is real, the rungs are specific, and each rung must be climbed in its order. As the chain descends, something essential happens at every link. The concealment grows. Each world is a further contraction, a further tzimtzum, a further step by which divine light voluntarily limits itself to become receivable by creation at a lower level. The light does not diminish, the Ein Sof is not depleted, but the accessibility of that light to the creatures of each world is progressively reduced. By the time the chain reaches Asiyah Gashmit, the physical world, the concealment is maximum. The divine light is still present, still real, still the ground of everything, but it is hidden so deeply that its absence can be convincingly imagined. This is the key to the etymological teaching at the heart of Gate 16. The Hebrew word for world, olam, shares its root with the word hahalam, meaning concealment. A world is a structured concealment. The very name of what we live in encodes its essential nature. The physical world is not the absence of God, it is God profoundly concealed. And the possibility of atheism, the possibility of being entirely unaware of the divine, is not a cosmic defect. It is a feature of the lowest world's design. Only in a world where God can be hidden completely can a being genuinely choose to seek Him. The Hishtalshalut is continuous. Creation is not an event that happened at a single moment in the distant past. It is the ongoing, every moment flow of divine light down the chain. If the Hishtalshalut stopped, if the chain of descent were interrupted even for an instant, the worlds below the interruption would cease to exist. Existence is sustained, moment by moment, by the continuous descent. The Shema's declaration that God renews each day the work of creation is not poetic flourish, it is cosmological description. The highest world is Atzilut. Its name comes from the Hebrew root etzel, close, near, beside. Atzilut is the world beside the infinite, the world so close to the divine source that nothing in it has independent existence. The 10 Sephirot operate in Atzilut, the 5 Partzufim are fully present, structure exists in every dimension the earlier gates described, but no entity within Atzilut experiences itself as separate from God. Atzilut waditza mishoresh etzel, karav lo Atzilut sois from the root etzel, close to him. The technical term the tradition uses for Atzilut's mode of being is bittul ha'etzem, essential nullification. Every element of Atzilut, every sephira, every partzuf, every aspect of the divine structure at this level is nullified to its source. They have form, they have function, they have specific qualities and relationships, but they do not have selfhood. The sephira of chesed in Atzilut does not experience itself as chesed. It experiences itself as the infinite manifesting as giving. The partzuf of Ze'ir Anpin in Atzilut does not stand over against the Ein Sof. He is the Ein Sof taking the form of a sun. The sephira that dominates Atzilut is chokmah, wisdom, the second sephira from the top, the flash of insight that precedes formulation. The point before the point becomes a line. Chokmah is the mode of divine presence that has structure but has not yet been unfolded into specific content. It is form without formulation, being without self-assertion. This is why Chokmah is the appropriate dominant sephira for Atzilut. Both share the quality of pure presence prior to any separation of self from source. All 15 gates before this one have taken place within Atzilut. The Tzimtzum, the Rishimu, the Kav, Adam Kadmon, the Akudim, the Nekudim, the Shattering, the Tikkun, the emergence of the 5 Partzufim, the architecture of Ze'ir and Nukva, the mechanics of Yichud, the structure of the soul. All of this is the internal drama of Atzilut. This gate is the first to look outward from Atzilut toward the worlds beyond it. There is one feature of Atzilut that will become crucial for what follows. The Malkut of Atzilut, the lowest sephira of the highest world, is identified in the tradition with divine speech itself. It is the level at which the "in the beginning" of Genesis originates. It is the root from which all lower worlds are built. On Shabbat, the Malkut of Atzilut ascends back toward its source within Atzilut, and this ascent is one of the cosmological reasons that Shabbat is qualitatively different from weekday time. The lower worlds, which ordinarily draw their existence from Atzilut's Malkut, find during Shabbat that their source has temporarily elevated, and the entire chain shifts upward in response. Between Atzilut and the worlds beneath it, there is a partition. The tradition calls it the parsa, the diaphragm, the screen, or sometimes the pargod, the curtain. It is the single most significant structural threshold in all of existence. Above the parsa, the divine is the world. Below the parsa, the divine creates the world. The two modes are categorically different, and the transition between them happens at this specific cosmic boundary. Parsa Daur Hamasak Ben Atzilut Levain, ABYA the Parsa, the screen between Atzilut and ABYA. The Parsa is the result of a second contraction. The first contraction, the Tzimtzum, which opened Gate 2, was the primordial withdrawal of the infinite to make room for creation. The second contraction happened later, at a specific moment in the cosmic drama. Malkut ascended to Bina, and when she rose, her former power remained behind as a filter. That filter is the Parsa. It is not a wall. It is not a barrier that blocks divine light entirely. It is a diaphragm that allows light to pass through while transforming it. The transformation is crucial. Light that passes the Parsa from above is still divine light, but it arrives on the far side in a different mode. In Atzilut, the divine light is immanent in a sense that requires no mediation. Every element of Atzilut is divinity. Below the Parsa, the light is creative rather than constitutive. It makes the worlds, shapes them, animates them, but it does so as a creator, acts upon what has been made. The analogy the tradition offers is sunlight passing through darkened glass. The sun has not changed, the light on the far side of the glass has. It is still sunlight, but its relationship to what it illuminates is different. Everything below the parsa has independent existence. This is the fundamental change. In Atzilut, nothing stands on its own. Below the parsa, creatures stand on their own, real, separate, genuinely other than the divine source from which they were made. This independence is not an illusion, despite what some mystical traditions have claimed. It is a genuine ontological status, granted by the second contraction and maintained by the parsa. The creatures below the parsa are real. They are not God in disguise. They are created beings who owe their existence to God but stand apart from Him as distinct subjects. The parsa is not permanent. It rises on Shabbat. The boundary between Atzilut and the lower worlds becomes thinner during the Shabbat day, which is why Shabbat is experienced as a qualitatively different mode of existence. On Yom Kippur, the parsa is fully breached. The one day of the year when the boundary between the divine and the created is functionally dissolved. This is the cosmological reason that the second verse of the Shema, which on ordinary days is whispered because it belongs to the angelic level below the parsa, is on Yom Kippur said aloud. On that day, the distinction between the angelic and the human no longer applies. The parsa has lifted. Immediately below the parsa is Beriyah, the world of creation, the first world in which something genuinely other than the divine exists. The technical term for what happens in Beriyah is yesh me'ayin, something from nothing, not the shaping of existing material, not the formation of what already is, but the genuine production of novelty. Beriyah is where there was nothing becomes there is something. The dominant sephirah of Beriyah is Bina, understanding. In the Sephirotic system, Bina is the mother, the womb in which the flash of Chokhmah becomes elaborated into structured content. Where Chokhmah is insight, Bina is comprehension. Where Chokhmah is the point of genesis, Bina is the space in which the point unfolds into thought. This is the appropriate dominant quality for the world of creation. Bina takes what was implicit in Atzilut's Chokhmah and develops it in all its detail. Beriyah is the world of pure thought. The tradition offers a parable to locate it in the development of consciousness. If Atzilut is the bliss of home, the place where no distinction exists between self and source, then Beriyah is the first step out of the home into the outside world, where the mind begins to operate as a separate faculty. It is the world of the professor, the tradition says, the place where intellect becomes public, where the contents of the mind are shaped into formulations that can be offered to others. The characteristic inhabitants of Beriyah are the highest class of angels, the Chayot HaKodesh, the holy living creatures that Ezekiel saw in his vision of the divine chariot. Beriyah is the world of the throne, the Kiseh HaKavod, the seat of glory, on which the divine presence descends when the divine enters into relationship with creation. Isaiah's vision of the seraphim crying, "Holy, holy, holy," also takes place at this level, at the very top of Beriyah, where the throne meets the parsa above it. These prophetic visions, the Lurianic tradition teaches, were not poetic imagery. They were reports from specific world levels, precisely identifiable within the cosmological structure. After death, the neshama of a righteous person ascends to what the tradition calls the upper Garden of Eden, Gan Eden ha'Elyon, which corresponds to Beriyah. This is the paradise of Jewish afterlife, not a physical location but a state of pure intellectual spiritual consciousness, a state in which the soul basks in the light of divine thought, contemplating at the level of Binah itself. Only souls that activated the neshama during life can enter it. The other soul levels rest at their own proper levels of the world chain. Below Beriyah is Yetzirah, the world of formation. Its name carries the specific sense of shaping what already exists, giving form to what has already been brought into being. Where Beriyah was yesh me'ayin, something from nothing, Yetzirah is yesh miyesh, something from something. The clay has been created in Beriyah. The potter now shapes it into vessels in Yetzirah. Yetzirah is dominated not by a single sephirah, but by six. The six emotional sephirot from Chesed through Yesod. Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. Where Beriyah is the world of thought, Yetzirah is the world of feeling. It is the cosmic register of divine emotion. Love, restraint, beauty, endurance, gratitude, bonding, each operating as a structural principle of the world rather than as a passing mood of creatures within it. Yetzirah is the world of speech. Where Beriyah is thought and Asiyah is action, Yetzirah is the middle term between them, the world of voiced expression, of word, of the transition between interior thought and external deed. The continuation of the parable locates this level precisely. If Beriyah is the professor, Yetzirah is the business consultant, the one whose work is to articulate and communicate, to translate understanding into language that can move in the world. The characteristic inhabitants of Yetzirah are the seraphim, the angels of burning, the creatures whose very name comes from the Hebrew root for fire. They are the angels whose worship takes the form of emotional combustion, whose relationship to the divine is the passionate striving of those who feel the distance from the higher world they once belonged to. Isaiah heard their cry, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. That triple declaration is, in the Lurianic reading, the song of the Yetzirah-level seraphim as they reach toward the Beriyah-level throne above them. Jacob's ladder, the dream vision in which the patriarch saw angels ascending and descending, is in the Lurianic tradition the bridge between Yetzirah and Asiyah. The ladder's base stood on the ground, which is Asiyah, and its top reached into the heavens, which is Yetzirah. The angels moving up and down are moving along the Hishtalshalut itself, carrying prayers upward and blessings downward between the world of formation and the world of action. The lower Garden of Eden, Gan Eden Ha-Takton, corresponds to Yetzirah. This is where the Ruach of righteous souls ascends after death. Not the highest paradise, which is at the Beriyah level, but a genuine paradise nonetheless. The place where the emotional life of the departed soul finds rest among the company of other righteous souls, where the emotional spiritual work of a life receives its proportional reward. The lowest of the four spiritual worlds is Asiyah, the world of action, of actualization, of completion. This is where the form given in Yetzirah becomes fully manifest, fully operative, fully present as a functioning reality. The word itself carries the sense of doing that finishes, the act that brings something into its final state. The dominant sephirah of Asiyah is Malkut, the kingdom. This is the 10th sephirah, the feminine receptive principle, the Partzuf of Nukva that Gate 13 treated at length. Malkut's dominance in Asiyah has a specific consequence. This is the world of pure receptivity, the world where everything is on the receiving end, the world where divine abundance arrives as its final destination before the boundary into the kelipot. It is also the world most vulnerable to what lies beneath. The characteristic angels of Asiyah are the ophanim, the wheels. Ezekiel saw them in his chariot vision. Wheels beside the living creatures, wheels within wheels, their rims full of eyes. The Ophanim do not sing songs of passionate emotion like the Yetzirah-level seraphim, nor do they contemplate like the Beriyah-level chayot. The Ophanim turn, they execute. They are the angels of cyclical, instinctive, mechanical operation, and in the Lurianic tradition, they are identified with the laws of nature themselves. Every repeating pattern in the physical universe, the turning of the spheres, the cycles of seasons, the instinctive behaviors of creatures, is an ophan doing its work. Ophanim, Kav Chokei Hateva, Shorshe HaYesh, Ophanim Tatavan, the laws of nature, Hoerzian, roots of existence. There is a saying the tradition preserves: there is no blade of grass that does not have a mazal, an angel, a governing celestial influence, in the sky above it. Every particular thing in the world has its specific ovan, its specific pattern angel, keeping it in being. The laws of physics are not impersonal mathematical abstractions in this view. They are the coordinated operation of angelic intelligences at the level of Asiyah, executing the Hishtalshalut as it manifests in the structure of the natural world. Asiyah is the world of individual rectification. In the higher worlds, the categories are universal. Binah, operating as such, the emotional Sephirot, operating as such. In Asiyah, everything becomes particular. Each individual creature, each specific situation, each single encounter, is its own arena for tikkun. The word Asiyah itself, the tradition notes, shares its root with a word that means rectification. The world of action is the world in which specific things are put right, one at a time, in their specific circumstances, and Asiyah is close to the kelipot. This is the last spiritual world before the boundary into the husks of concealment, and the proximity is dangerous. The evil inclination strengthens in Asiyah, the kelipot noga. The husk nearest the holy, the one partially redeemable, becomes progressively less mixed with good as we descend within Asiyah itself. The lower we go, the more dangerous the terrain. This is not a cosmic defect, it is the necessary condition for genuine free moral choice. Only in a world where evil is maximally accessible can a being genuinely choose good. Beneath the spiritual world of Asiyah lies Asiyah Gashmit, physical Asiyah, the world of our embodied experience, the universe of matter and measurement, the cosmos that astronomers describe and physicians treat. The relationship between Asiyah Gashmit and the spiritual Asiyah above it is structurally identical to the relationship between any world and the one above it. The Malkut of the higher becomes the Keter of the lower. The physical world is the lowest rung. There is nothing beneath it. Every previous descent has opened into another world beneath. At Asiyah Gashmit, the chain reaches its terminal point. This world is the final vessel. And in a way, the tradition insists upon, without softening, the greatest vessel. Because the concealment here is maximum, the tikkun here is maximum. A spark of divine light that is returned to its source from within the physical world carries a weight that a spark returned from within Atzilut does not. The distance traversed is the measure of the work accomplished. Divine light is present even in stone. This is a teaching Gate 16 makes explicit. The Ein Sof has not departed from any level of the Hishtalshalut. The light is concealed in the physical world, not absent from it. Every material object, every plant, every animal, every mineral, every molecule, has within it the sustaining light that prevents it from reverting to the nothingness out of which it was drawn. The light is maximally hidden, but it is there. The atheist's conviction that the physical world operates without divine ground is possible only because the concealment is so thorough. The ground is still there. There is a phrase from later Hasidic thought that crystallizes the teaching of this chapter. The purpose of creation, the Hasidic masters say, quoting and extending Gate 16, is dira b'taktonim, to make an abode for God in the lower realms, not an abode in the highest heavens, where God already manifestly dwells, an abode here, in this world, among the structures that can deny God's existence. The endpoint of the Hishtalshalut is not the return of everything to Atzilut. It is the transformation of Asiyah Gashmit into a place where the divine light, long concealed, is made manifest. The revelation was never in an elsewhere. The revelation is what the work of this world, done across generations, is building. This is the Lurianic answer to the ancient Gnostic suspicion of matter. The Gnostic reading sees the physical world as the product of a lesser or malevolent demiurge, a prison to escape, an illusion to see through. The Etz Chayyim inverts this entirely. The physical world is not a mistake. It is not a fall from which one climbs. It is the intended destination of the entire chain of divine emanation. The work of human life is not to leave this world, but to illuminate it. The body is not the soul's obstacle. It is the soul's indispensable partner in accomplishing the tikkun that could not be accomplished anywhere else. Every world contains two modes of divine light simultaneously. This teaching, introduced at Gate 16, resolves the classical theological paradox of transcendence and immanence, how God can be utterly beyond the world and intimately present within it at once. The Lurianic answer is that these are two different modes of the same divine light, operating in every world at every moment. The first mode is the Memale Kol Almin, the light that fills all worlds. This is the immanent light, the creative light, the light that is shaped by and shapes the vessels of each world it enters. The Memale changes as it descends. It is dense in Atzilut and increasingly contracted as it passes through the Parsa and down through ABYA. It is, in the structural language of the earlier gates, the light of the Kav, the thin line of light that entered the void after the Tzimtzum. It is divine light that vests itself within creation, adapting itself to what each world can receive. Memale Kol Almin, Sovev Kol Almin, filling all worlds, surrounding all worlds. The second mode is the Sovev Kol Almin, the light that surrounds all worlds. This is the transcendent light. It does not enter any particular world. It does not adapt to any particular vessel. It surrounds every world equally, at the same infinite level, unchanged, always itself. The Sovev is the Ein Sof as it continues to exist beyond all the contractions that made the worlds possible. The contractions happened. The infinite continues, unaffected by them, the same above and below, the same before and after. The analogy the tradition offers is two modes of sunlight. Imagine the sun's light filling a room, streaming through windows, illuminating specific surfaces, shaped by the walls and furniture and the particular angles of the openings. That is the Memale. Now imagine the same sun's light filling the entire space of the cosmos, equal in all directions, unchanged by any container, illuminating the galaxy as a whole without reference to the shape of any specific room within it. That is the Sovev. Both are sunlight. Both are real. They operate at the same time. One adapts to what it enters. The other does not. In every world, both are present. Atzilut has its Memale that fills Atzilut as Atzilut can receive it, and its Sovev that surrounds Atzilut as the unchanging infinite. Beriyah has its Memale adapted to Beriyah's mode of existence, and its Sovev that surrounds Beriyah without adapting. All the way down to Asiyah Gashmit. Every world at every moment is both filled from within by divine light that has adapted to its capacity, and surrounded from outside by divine light that has not. The Zohar's ancient formulation remains precise. The holy, holy, holy of Isaiah's seraphim is the song of the Sovev, addressing the transcendent divine. The blessed be his glory that follows it is the song of the Memale, addressing the divine light that has entered creation. This doctrine has practical consequence. It means that no level of creation is ever abandoned by the divine. Even the most concealed corner of Asiyah Gashmit is surrounded by the full Sovev, the infinite Ein Sof, unchanged, present beyond the concealment. The Memale may be contracted to almost nothing at the most material levels. The Sovev is never contracted anywhere. Every material object is, in this sense, already resting within the infinite. What tikkun does, what mitzvot and prayer and the illumination of the physical accomplish, is reveal the Sovev that was always already there, making the Memale and the Sovev apparent as what they are. The divine that has been surrounding the stone from the beginning becomes visible to the being who has done the work of seeing. Gate 16 closes with the practical catalog, the specific divine names that operate in each of the four worlds, and the specific classes of angels that inhabit each. These correspondences let a practitioner of Lurianic Kabbalah orient any prayer, any mitzvah, any moment of contemplative experience within the correct world level. The catalog is not ornamental, it is a working diagram. In Atzilut, the name is YHVH, the tetragrammaton, the four-letter name of being, the name so holy that it cannot be pronounced and is read as Adonai by substitution. YHVH is the divine name at the level where name and named are identical, where the naming is not the naming of a thing but the saying of what is. All Yichudim that unite YHVH with its constituent elements, all the cosmic operations of the previous gate, take place at the level where this name is the dominant form of divine self-reference. In Beriyah, the name is Shaddai, El Shaddai, the Almighty. The name of divine sufficiency, of the divine that says enough, the name under which boundaries are set. God revealed himself to the patriarchs, the Torah teaches, by the name El Shaddai, which the Lurianic tradition reads as a specific cosmological claim. The patriarchs operated at the level of Beriyah. The name by which they knew the divine was the name proper to their level of access. In Yetzirah, the name is Elohim, the name that appears in the opening of Genesis. In the beginning, Elohim created. Elohim is grammatically plural in form. The ending, im, is the Hebrew plural suffix, which the tradition reads not as a sign of multiple deities, but as a sign that in Yetzirah, the divine operates through the many emotional sephirot, the many angels, the many forms. Elohim is the name of differentiated creative action, the name under which the one divinity manifests as a multiplicity of coordinated powers. In Asiyah, the name is Adonai, my Lord, the name that substitutes for YHVH in pronunciation, the name of sovereignty as it is experienced from below. Adonai is the divine as king over the world of action, the divine whose reign is experienced by creatures who stand on their own feet and address him from their own position. This is the name most used in prayer precisely because prayer takes place from within Asiyah and addresses God at the level where Asiyah's creatures encounter him. The angel classes follow the same logic. Atzilut has no separate angels. The 5 Partzufim themselves, Atik Yomin, Arich Anpin, Abba, Imma, Zeir Anpin, Nukva, are the inhabitants of Atzilut. There is no level beneath them within Atzilut where a separate angelic class could stand. Beriyah has the Chayot HaKodesh, Ezekiel's holy living creatures, the highest and most intellectually pure class of angels. Yetzirah has the seraphim, the burning ones, the angels of divine emotion and sustained praise. Asiyah has the ophanim, the wheels, the angels whose work is the execution of the laws of nature. This fourfold correspondence, name, world, dominant, sephira, angel class, gives the practitioner a complete map. Every visionary experience, every peak moment in prayer, every moment of spiritual elevation can be located within it. When Isaiah saw the seraphim above the throne, he saw Yetzirah-level angels crying from below the Beriyah-level throne on which the divine rested. When Ezekiel saw the Chayot and the Ophanim together, he saw the inhabitants of Beriyah and Asiyah simultaneously, the chariot of the divine presence passing through his vision at 2 levels at once. The prophetic tradition is not a series of poetic reports. It is a series of geographically precise observations of specific world levels. The cosmology of Gate 16 is the map by which those observations can be read. Gate 16 has mapped the 4 worlds. We began with the scriptural anchor in Isaiah's single verse, where 4 verbs encode 4 levels of divine self-disclosure: called, created, formed, made, Atzilut, Beriyah, Yetzirah, Asiyah. We followed the Hishtalshalut, the chain of descent, through its principle that the Malkut of every upper world becomes the Keter of the world beneath it, and we saw that the word Olam itself carries the root meaning of concealment, making every world a structured hiding of the divine from itself. We entered Atzilut as the world adjacent to the infinite, the world where every element is nullified to its source, the world where Chokmah dominates, and the 5 Partzufim hold the entire architecture of the first 15 gates. We examined the Parsa, the partition that separates the divine from the created, and saw how the light passes through, but is transformed in the passage, turning from constitutive into creative. We descended through Beriyah, the world of Binah and the divine throne and the Chayot HaKodesh, through Yetzirah, the world of emotion and speech and the burning seraphim and Jacob's ladder, through Asiyah, the world of Malkut and the Ophanim and the individual rectifications that are the texture of this level's work. We arrived at Asiyah Gashmit, the physical world we inhabit, and saw it not as a fall from higher worlds, but as the intended destination of the whole Hishtalshalut, the place where the greatest tikkun is possible precisely because the greatest concealment is in force. We received the teaching of Sovev and Memeleh, the two modes of divine light that resolve the paradox of transcendence and immanence, and saw that every world at every moment is simultaneously filled from within by light adapted to its vessel, and surrounded from outside by light that is not adapted at all. And we closed with the catalog of divine names and angels, YHVH and the Partzufim in Atzilut, Shaddai and the Chayot in Beriyah, Elohim and the Seraphim in Yetzirah, Adonai and the Ophanim in Asiyah. What this gate teaches, finally, is a structure and a purpose. The structure is the Hishtalshalut, the continuous moment-by-moment descent of divine light through the four worlds into the physical universe. The purpose is the Dira B'Taktonim, the making of an abode for God in the lower realms, the transformation of the most concealed world into a place of divine revelation. The cosmology is not an abstract description of how things are arranged. It is a map of the work. We inhabit the lowest rung. The entire chain of worlds above us is continuously pouring light into the vessel we stand within. The task is to make that light visible in the vessel, one mitzvah, one prayer, one act of illuminated matter at a time. Kol hanikra vishmi v'likvodi brativ yitzartiv af asativ. All who are called by my name, and for my glory, I have created, I have formed, even I have made. This has been Gate 16, the Gate of the World, from the Etz Chayyim. Gate 17 follows, Sha'ar HaKeli Pot, the Gate of the Shells, the complete doctrine of the husks of concealment, the Sitra Achra, Samael and Lilith, and the cosmic role of evil as the necessary shadow of the good. The Etz Chayyim is translated from the Warsaw 1891 edition, digitized by HebrewBooks.org. The complete 5-volume English translation is available from Threshold Press at thresholdpress.com. Translation by L.L. Featheringhill. Channel work at thresholdpress.com. Subscribe for the rest of the series.